Hello everyone. Today is the year 2026, May 4, Day 3, Friday. And I am introducing a trending article from the archives today. Welcome back to my little radio corner of the internet. I sit in my slightly messy room and talk to myself about the coolest research papers. And hopefully, you all enjoy listening to my ramblings. Before we begin, I have to tell you a secret. My microphone is actually made of aged cheddar cheese. But do not worry because it still sounds great. My title is a terrible joke that probably no one understands, but I just had to get it out of my system. Now, let us get into the raw meat of today's broadcast, which is a fascinating paper about fake audio. The title is Trace Training Free Partial Audio Deepfake Detection via Embedding Trajectory Analysis of Speech Foundation Models. The pro is Deceptive or ABS 2604-1083. It is a bit of a mouthful, but I promise it is super interesting. Let us start by talking about the massive problem this paper is trying to solve. Imagine you are listening to a voice message from your boss or your friend, and it sounds exactly like them for almost the entire recording. But right in the middle, just for a few seconds, someone has spliced in a completely fake, computer-generated sentence. This is called a partial audio deepfake, where synthesized segments are secretly stitched into genuine recordings. These are incredibly deceptive because most of the audio is actually authentic, so human ears naturally trust the whole clip. And even commercial speaker verification systems get fooled with success rates exceeding 95%. Bad actors use this trick to bypass security, commit financial fraud, and spread very targeted disinformation, all while hiding behind a mostly real recording. Now, how does our current technology handle this problem? Well, traditionally, researchers build supervised deep learning models to catch these fakes. But there is a huge catch with these older supervised methods. They require massive amounts of frame-level annotated data, which we as humans have to manually label exactly which milliseconds of audio are fake. And that is incredibly expensive and time-consuming. Even worse, these supervised models tend to overfit to specific synthesis pipelines. That means if they are trained to catch fakes made by one specific program, they completely fail when a brand new artificial intelligence voice generator comes out. They must be constantly retrained from scratch to keep up with the threat landscape, making them fragile and very costly to maintain. This is where the genius of this paper comes in, because the researchers propose a completely trained, free approach called Trace. Instead of building a new model and feeding it thousands of labeled examples, you realize that existing speech foundation models already have a hidden superpower. Models like WavLM were trained on massive amounts of normal human speech just to understand audio, and they were never meant to be forgery detectors. However, the researchers hypothesized that genuine human speech forms smooth, slowly varying trash in the mathematical space of these models. Because human vocal cords have physical limitations, our speech flows naturally from one sound to the next. But when an attacker splices in a fake audio clip, introduces an abrupt, unnatural disruption in those frame-level transitions, so the Trace system extracts audio embeddings using the frozen foundation model, which means they do not change or train the model at all. They project these embeddings onto a mathematical structure called a unit hypersphere, which strips away irrelevant things like how loud the recording is. It purely focuses on the directional phonological content of the frames. Then, they simply measure the chord distance between consecutive frames. In normal speech, this distance is small and smooth. But at a splice boundary, the distance spikes dramatically because the artificial intelligence enters semi-linear of audio produced by a completely different generative process. They capture this first-order dynamic sequence without needing a single gradient update or labeled dataset, and the results are absolutely mind-blowing. On the most challenging benchmark featuring commercial synthesis driven by large language models, Trace outright surpassed the supervised baselines by achieving a 20.12% equal error rate, compared to the 24.49% of the trained models. And it did this without ever seeing any training data from that target domain. Let us talk about how this incredible concept could be applied in the real world, because the impact of a train-free detector is huge. First, imagine applying this technology directly to banking and financial call centers. Right now, scammers use partial voice cloning to call a bank, speaking with a real human voice for the pleasantries, and then playing a clone segment to authorize a massive wire transfer. Banks could integrate the trace framework to the live customer service phone lines, because the system requires almost no extra computing power and relies on simple closed-form statistics. But to analyze the caller's speech trajectory in real time, instantly flagging the operand if an unnatural medical spike occurs when the voice asks to move funds. Second, this could revolutionize digital journalism and forensic evidence verification. In political campaigns, we'd often see leaked audio recordings where a politician supposedly says something terrible. Journalists currently struggle to verify these clips quickly because deepfakes are getting so good. News organizations could build an automated screen tool powered by Trace, since Trace is completely training-free and does not evolve to last year's voice generators. It can reliably detect brand new, unseen generative manipulations. Journalists could just drop an audio file into the tool, and Trace would analyze the temporal dynamics to find the exact millisecond where a fake sentence was spliced into a real speech, preventing fake news from going viral before the election. Third, we could see this integrated into personal communication apps, like social media messaging platforms or secure voice chat applications. People are increasingly targeted by personalized scams where an artificial intelligence clones a family member's voice asking for emergency money. App developers could embed this lightweight, frozen model evaluation right into the audio processing pipeline of the chat application. Since it operates purely on the geometry of the audio embeddings and works across different languages without needing retraining, it could automatically display a warning labeling a voice note if the embedding trajectory shows the telltale disruptions of a partial deepfake. This would protect everyday people from falling victim to highly sophisticated social engineering attacks, all while running quietly and efficiently in the background. I think it is absolutely beautiful how the researchers looked at a problem that everyone was trying to solve with more data and more training, and instead just looked at the fundamental geometry of what already existed. They proved that intermediate layers, specifically layer 18 of the WavLM model, contain the perfect balance of acoustic and phonetic information to catch these fakes. It is a brilliant reminder that sometimes the best solutions do not require building something entirely new, but simply looking at things from a different angle. Well, I have tapped quite a bit today, and my cheese microphone is starting to melt. So, I should probably wrap this up. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you next time.